Alright, y'all, good morning. It's your boy Romance. Another episode of Trojan War today. Today we're going to talk about Homer. Behind me you see the shitty YMCA. Please, if any of you can get me the fuck out of here, man. Get me out. It's killing me living here, bro. Being alone all the time. Just the fucking distance from everything where I'm at, like I'm on foot, it sucks. Please help me, bro, if anybody needs a roommate. Anyway, alright, we're gonna get back into Trojan War today, and today we're gonna talk about Homer. I mean, basically, I'm gonna give you the story of the story today, and there's a magnificent story behind the Trojan War. Alright, so I said yesterday, we're talking about the collapse of the Bronze Age, happened about 1200 AD. Now, the Trojan War probably happened maybe 20, 30, 40 years before that, so probably 1240, 1250 BC, you got the Trojan War, and all the events that happened in this book. Now, the Trojan War, the real name of the Trojan War is that there's two sources, okay? There's the main two sources of these stories are the Iliad and the Odyssey. The Iliad is the story of the Trojan War. The Odyssey is the story of Odysseus' journey home from it. Okay? Homer is credited with writing both of those. Now this story went huge for like thousands of years. So there's been embellishments, there's been quotations. We have all kinds of fragments of the story that Homer didn't write, but people quoted later on, and there's additions to it, okay? The whole story of the horse in the end, that's actually not in the Iliad. That was added on by another writer later on, and we just kind of kept it in the picture. If you've ever seen, now the movie Troy doesn't have this, but some adaptations of the Trojan War have the part. Originally, the story is that the gods were at a wedding, and they didn't invite Discord, and Discord showed up and gave an apple that said "to the fairest," and then the goddesses started fighting over it. Hera, Aphrodite, and Athena all fought over this apple. Well, and I'm going to get into this facet of the story as well. I'm not going to get into that today, but that part, the whole gods having a party and deciding to make Paris the judge, that's not in Homer's story either. So Homer's story starts out on the last 50 days of 10 years of Greek occupation. Like, basically the Greeks have been sieging Troy for 10 years, and this is kind of the end of the line here. Like, the story is the last couple days of it. And really it's the story of Achilles. Achilles is a almost godlike warrior. He only has one part of his body that is vulnerable. Everything else is invulnerable because his mother dipped him in the river Styx when he was a baby, and she had to hold him by his heel to do that. So that one part of his body did not get touched by the river Styx, and therefore it is pervious to weapon blows. But the rest of him is not. That's why he's fucking nasty in battle. But anyway, we're not going to get into the whole semantics of the story. What I want to tell you today is the story of the story. So the Bronze Age collapsed. It collapsed in 1200 AD. We're assuming shortly after, whatever the hell, if it did really happen, if the Trojan War, if there's any truth to it whatsoever. Greece went into, like, where the sea peoples came. I talked about that yesterday. There were all kinds of cataclysms, all kinds of earthquakes at this time, and climate change, people moving. It was a fucked up time. The Bronze Age ended, and after that happened, Greece went into a dark age for 500 years, really 600 years. Okay, at the end of that dark age is when Homer existed. So 500 years went by in between the events taking place and somebody finally writing it down. Now, how did they keep the story going all that time? This was by bardic tradition. Somebody would sing around a fire, sing in front before dinner. Remember, there wasn't TVs, there wasn't cell phones back in the day. They had no entertainment, so people called bards would like play a guitar or an instrument and sing, and they had much bigger attention spans, so like these songs would last for days. And one of these songs was this story, the Iliad and the Odyssey. They kept it alive by singing it. Things can be kept alive long time by oral tradition, and a lot of the information we have in this world today actually came to us through oral tradition, and it was immediately written down with the advent of writing. So Homer gets credit for writing this story, even though he probably didn't really write, because according to legend, he's blind. Homer is blind, the actual Homer. And again, he lived in about 700 BC. It's all over ancient Greece. There's everywhere. There's a bunch of places that say Homer was born here, Homer played here, Homer slept here. I think he was kind of like a rock star. He might have been the best person at saying doing this little rhyme of this little, this little routine, so to speak. So, how reliable can he be then? How much of this can actually be true, or can any of it be right? There's a lot, amazingly, there's a lot of stuff. Like, for instance, there's walls in the city that he describes that were not there during his time, so there's no way he could have known about it. There's like a lot of the equipment that the soldiers are wearing. All right, what he describes was long gone by his time and was no longer in use. So how the hell did he know about it? Like, he was on point about a lot of stuff that was gone 500 years later. But there's a lot of things that he says, there's a lot of things he describes, things people are wearing, hairstyles, things like that, that actually didn't occur 500 years before him and were only during his time. Basically, by the time Homer comes around, it's the Iron Age. It's no longer the Bronze Age collapsed, now we're in the Iron Age. So some things that he said were very Iron Age, some things he said were very Bronze Age. So he was on point with a lot of things that he could never have known about. And I mean, if you've ever played Pass It Down the Alley, like if I just say, she sells seashells down by the seashore, and you have to whisper that around a room, by the time it gets back to you, it's gonna be different, all right? Imagine this is like thousands of lines of poetry that he had to keep straight for 500 years. Wow, impressive. So, and most people think, scholars think that like somehow Greece got itself back out of illiteracy, this illiterate dark age that it was in a big way. It became classical Greece, man. It gave us geometry, history, science, everything that you learn in college. Greeks were there first. Aristotle, Socrates, Pluto, Euclid, you know what I mean? I could go on for days about all the great minds in Greece. So the way they got out of this dark age, the way they got back into reading and writing was with this story. That was what they taught in schools to children, how to learn your ABCs. You learn the Trojan War. That's what scholars are starting to think, and I believe that myself. But anyway, all of the heroes in the story and all of the gods that appear in the story, this is also an identity factor for the Greeks. They also looked at this as their history and their culture and so forth. And a lot of in Greek myths, the myths occur all in places that still exist in Greece. And so if the places were there, why would people not lie about the place, but lie about who was in it? Why would so many people care about this story if it didn't somehow happen? So anyway, it's possible that maybe so Homer gets credit for these stories. It's possible there might not even be one Homer. Maybe Homer was like the name for everyone who was a traveling bard. We simply don't, we don't know, but I think there was an actual Homer myself, and I think that he was kind of like a rock star. So again, and there's many other embellished stories. The most famous one is called the Aeneid. Now there's another book that came later that is the book of the returns. Every hero except Odysseus, because Odysseus gets his own book, but every other hero story of returning back to Greece. And there's a lot of them about the Trojans, who there's a story called the Aeneid, because one of the Trojans, one of the guys who lived in Troy, was named Aeneas. It's a funny name. But all of Rome, the Romans think that that's their ancestor. Like somehow Aeneas fled Troy and he came to Italy, and he like lived in what's now Rome, somewhere in the 7 hills of Rome, and he gave birth to children, and they gave birth to children. Eventually Remus and Ramus were born, and they founded Rome, and through Remus and Ramus came the patrician families, and Julius Caesar, Augustus Caesar, they all think they came from Aeneas. That's their ancestor. So again, how reliable is this? How true is this story? How can it really be true? We don't know, but we do have archaeological evidence, and that's going to be my next show is going to be the story itself, which I got into a little bit today, and then I'm going to do maybe one, probably 2 shows on the historical archaeological digs that are happening in Troy. There is an actual Troy. They have found it, and the story behind the archaeology is immense. My name is Romance. Please go to YouTube, look up The World According to Romance, and subscribe, like, and comment. Like me on Facebook, like me in general. I need your help. I'm a freaking mess right now. But I'm your boy. You're my people. Keep tuning in. The World According to Romance. Peace.